right, it's Friday. That's a good thing, right? It's the end of January. There's another good thing. Only 4 months of school left. 4 months until some of you are, please stop. Some of you are in high school. This should be a quick lesson. This is the realization that fractions and decimals and percents are all the same thing. I could look at her and call her Jordan. I could be looking at her, talking to her, call her Miss Wright, or I can look at her and say she or her, and if I'm looking at her and speaking to her, everybody knows who I'm talking to, right? So fractions, decimals, and percents are 3 ways of saying the same thing. Go back to your younger years where you first realized that 1/2 as a decimal was 0.5. And then you realized that 0.5 was the same as 0.50, which is the same as 50%. So 1/4 was another one that you caught on to pretty quick because it's a quarter. So you knew that was 0.25 or 25%. And now you're really acquainted with the word percent, meaning per hundred. So percent is hundredths. 25 hundredths is 0.25 because 2 digits after the decimal is hundreds, right? That's about all I should have to say for today's lesson. So you have a lot of work to do to reacquaint yourself with this, but it really shouldn't be that long. You should be done. You shouldn't have any homework at all, even though you've got a lot of problems to do, because what else can I say other than fractions and decimals and percents are all the same? Here's what else I can say. Therefore, to change a decimal, Brian, what, bud? Yeah, lady. To change a decimal to a percent, watch what happens. See these two numbers? One says 0.25, one just says 25. So what did I do? To change this decimal to this percent, I went and moved the decimal point 2 places. When I say 25% and I move it to a decimal, when I go from percent to decimal, what do? Whoop, and move it 2 places to the left. You all, for some reason, tuned out, some of you. To change, these are the easy ones, but to change any decimal to a percent, you move it 2 places to the right, put the percent sign. To change any percent to a decimal, you move it 2 to the left and get rid of the percent sign. So, knowing that, how would I write that as a percent? Whoop, 71%. How would I write that as a decimal? Whoop, 0.83. Okay, those are easy because they're in hundreds. What about this?
3% or 0.3%.
No, look. 2 places. So 4%, what's that look like as a decimal? 2 places. 1, 2. You need that. Oh, bonus question. As a percent. Elise? 216%. Question, what would the number 1 be as a percent? 100%. If the guy went into the pizza shop and ordered a large pizza and he got it cut into 8 pieces and he ate all 8 pieces, he ate 1 whole pizza, he ate what percentage of the pizza? 100%. So 1 is 100%. 2 is 200%. Everybody got it? You want me to be quiet so you can get to work so you have no homework because you got to do 1 through 43.
What?
What? Listen, just so you know, no, it's not, dear. It's 43. No, 1 through 43 is 43. Go. Yes. It doesn't include zero.
What day? It's ridiculous. I like.
And hold up. Some of you are getting to the age where, don't vote on this if you don't know, but I think some of you have had, you can't vote unless you've had iced coffee from both places. I've had iced coffee from Dunkin' and McDonald's is way better.
No.
Caramel iced coffee from McDonald's, way better than Dunkin'. Way better than Dunkin'.
That's not true.
It's 100% both places.
If you're breaking it, I agree.
All right, let's go.
How much what's the price?
Oh, and knowing Mr. Franken, how frugal he is, he's not making that decision based on price, even though I think McDonald's costs less. It's taste. I think Dunkin' it's like $2.89 and McDonald's like $1.50. So that right there would convince me that McDonald's is better, but that's not what I'm saying.
Dunkin's coffee is bigger.
Because actually, I never buy it. I wouldn't drink that just because it's All right, Elise. Next thing out of Elise's mouth today is going to be if she has a question for Mr. Franken about the math. Let's see. Elise, I'm going to put you on a timer. Now remember, we're World Wide Web here. Just kidding. All right, let's go.
No.
So, now do you need to be isolated, Isaac? Me? Yeah. Because,
Yes, he does.
I mean, I know you're waiting for the seats to be changed so you can.
Isaac, but.
I just realized he's not one boy out of like a rectangle of and he still talks that much. Jordan.
Well, still talks that much. That's why he talks that much.
See, Lauren? I know, but I'm not the only one that takes Starbucks instead of
Starbucks is garbage. Overpriced. I think it's too small for you to watch it.
Spencer's already on 7, so those of you that are wasting time.
I don't have paper either. Dave's on 9, so.
I'm on 2.
You can find the mic up. I know you can find it. Somebody probably put something on top of it, but it's there. Micah, you're getting colder. Warmer. Hot.
Right there, in front of your face.
Somebody probably put something on top of it, but it's there. Hopefully you understood what number 1 was asking you. If you take the whole circle graph that divides things up into pieces, like pizza. If you add up all the percents, it's got to be, the whole thing's 100%. And if you write that as a fraction, I erased it. 1. Point 1 as a percent. Whoop, whoop. 10%. 2 places to the right. Decimal 2%, 2 places to the right. Oh, one last thing I forgot to add. How do you change those fractions that you don't know? Some of you don't know this one, and you should memorize your eighths by now, by the way. You already have your halves and your fourths. Those are the easy ones. You don't even have to try to memorize those. You should know your tenths, of course. You should know your fifths, 2, 4, 6, 8. Conquer these too. 3/8 is 0.375, 37.5%. How did we get the 0.375? It's 3, what's the fraction bar? Divided by 8.
Your face, you're so disgusting. It's like, just see your face. You look like you're mad at the board. She looks like she's ready to like hug someone. Yes, sir. Oh, red.
It's like the opposite.
The opposite.
Yeah. That's really around is like.
What?
Anything.
What? There's a couple. Two?
Rachel, pay attention.
What is
12.5%. Watch this. Noah, change a percent to a decimal. Whoop, whoop. 2 places to the left.
Whoa.
That's epic.
Wait,
no, yeah. What if they're
And Dominic should also realize that that's 1/8. Memorize these things. Life is so much easier the more mental math you can do. 25, 50, 75. What's half of 25? 12.5. So when you do eighths, an eighth is a half of a fourth. Some of you can't process that mentally, and you need to do that too. An eighth is half of a fourth. So when you do eighths, 12.5 and 12.5 is 25. That's 2 eighths, 1/4. 37.5, 50, 62.5, 75, 87.5, 8 out of 8's, the whole thing. The more you got up here, the easier math becomes. Yes, Spencer. 16.
I don't know how to do this.
1/80th. They want it as a percent, right? Well, there's 2 ways. Spencer's asking about number, did you say 16? All right, everybody, look up here. Just like yesterday, and a lot of ways, things to do in math, there's more than one way to skin a cat, right, Isaac?
What?
Is that the first time some of you have ever heard that phrase?
Yeah.
I used it in 5th grade. They all were like, some of them almost started to cry. There's more than one way to skin a cat. So we could always, in order to find out what percent is, you can always set the fraction equal to 100. And then figure out what would be on top of there. But the other way is to treat it like division. And then whatever you get for your decimal, to change it to a percent, you move it 2 places to the right. So this is number 16. 80 goes into 1, not at all. It goes into 10, not at all. It goes into 100 once. Can I put a 0 on the end without changing things? Yes. Okay. Can I put a 0 on the end without changing things? Yes. So 0.0125, wait, that's not what they want. They want to know what that is as a percent. What do I do? 1.25%. Now wait, Spencer's going to use his math sense here. He thinks he got it right. He thinks to himself, 1 out of 100 is 1%. 1 out of 80 got to be more than 1%. You with me on this? So he's confident that that's the right answer. Because 1 out of 80 should be a little more than 1%. And Seth thinks, yeah, because 1 out of 100 is 1%, and 1 out of 50 is 2%. So 1 out of 80 should be between 1 and 2%. Did you follow that, Micah? Okay, so we're doing a little self-check without redoing the whole problem. Is that a reasonable answer? Yes. Cameron, did you follow that? We're trying to develop Kiara's math sense heading into high school, not just, okay, here's the problem, here's the rules, here's what I got to do, follow the steps, done, next thing. No. No. Develop math sense. Because it's not going away. The United States of America, the state of Ohio, has determined that you will have 3 math courses in high school. At least. It's the law.
You have to have 3.
So, master it.
I'm already in high school more than 3.
Okay, hold on.
Elementary.
As if yesterday wasn't frustrating enough, Noah just asked, how many years of high school are there?
Oh gosh.
Noah, how many is it?
There's
4.
Right.
Everything, you know, like the years back, like how many hairs are in your head.
Noah.
Gotta be kidding.
Evelyn came, she can't believe you just asked that.
5. Yes.
Noah, name the years of high school. What's 9th grade known as?
Freshman.
Noah.
Jordan.
What's 10th grade known as?
Sophomore?
What's 11th grade known as?
Junior?
And 12th grade.
Senior.
So you kind of knew that there was 4 years, didn't you?
No, I actually did. Oh, you said 3 years? You said 3 years?
You need 3 years of math.
Yeah.
At least 3.
Now name the
Take math or seniors.
Yes.
She really does.
And you 17 on the board?
17 coming up.
Yeah.
If I can, do you guys mind if I
No.
teach? 17 coming up. 3/20. Ooh, Brett, I'm going to show you something that you don't have to do all that division. Because this one will work out really good just setting it equal to 100. Think about it, Brett. That's something you can do quickly in your head. 20 times what gets you 100?
So it's 15 over.
15%. Or, Brett, you could have done this. You could have done that, but using his math sense, Brett says, oh, that's a simple math problem I can do. 20 times 5 gets me to 100, so 3 times 5 is 15. And 15 per 100 literally is 15%. See, there's more than one way to skin a cat. Yeah.
I know this is part of that, but I skipped it. For number 10,
Then maybe they need slippers. What?
for number 10, it's the process of 18 and 48.
Number 10. Let me go back there. 48 people. 18 of them sleep 8 hours a night. You're going to make a fraction. 18 out of 48. Okay? So 18 over 48, reduce that. What's 18 over 48?
Well,
3 eighths. Okay? 3 eighths.
Oh, and 38
You can either memorize your eighths or do 3 divided by 8. Okay, so as a percent, 37. David, you're doing that on purpose because you're trying to bring back the nightmare of yesterday when you tried to tell me that you eliminate 0.32x by multiplying by 0.32 instead of dividing by 0.32. Now go ahead and ask your question. 18 out of 48 sleep 8 hours a day. 18 out of 48 reduces to 3 eighths. What percent is that? 3 divided by 8. You're going to get 0.375. How do you change 0.375 into a percent. Whoop. 2 places to the right. Ethan, since he's closer to you, and you can smack him and just get reprimanded because you're be a first offense. If I smack him, I could go to jail. Although I know his dad, so Mr. McPeak would probably be perfectly fine and know that. David, when I said 2 to the right, does that put me all the way at the end of 375, David? 2 places. 2 places, David. 37.5%. Yes. Yes. Spencer, what number are you on?
126.
122. Rachel's on 1. I'm not.
Why did you already say?
Which one?
Rachel's
Well, I erased it because all you want to do is copy what I have, and how's that help you?
No, I'm not. I already did. I'm figure it out on my own. No, I'm not.
Yeah, you
I
are.
can find out,
I don't
ladies and gentlemen, I could find out any fraction, what it would be as a decimal, by using the fraction bar as a division sign. Or I can set this equal to 100, because that's literally what percent means. Either way, I get the same answer. Okay, so I got Jordan, 0.0125. How do I change a decimal to a percent? Look. 1.25%.
We need your 21. I don't know if
Listen, 21, you don't have to do any figuring. 21's already a decimal. You just go, whoop, whoop, done. 1.06 is, go ahead, Kira.
What?
How many places do you move it, dear? Why are you only moving it 1? I got David moving it 3, you moving it 1. Is that on purpose? You're moving how many places, Jaden? 2. So we go from 1.056 to
0.01. No. Right?
move it to the right, dear.
You just said. Oh, I was looking at it backwards.
You're gonna give me the answer so I can be satisfied and go on. Yes, but don't say and. 105.6%. Now, Kira, like I told Brett earlier, math sense. Ready? The decimal was 1 and something. Automatically, you know the answer is 100-something% because we already went over the whole thing equals 1, which is 100%. So as soon as you see your decimal is 1 and something, you know your percent is 100-something%. You with me on that, Jaden? Oh.
I was so focused on
Which question?
Isaac, what did you say about
Which
math?
one, Jaden?
I don't know.
You said you were so focused on it. Which one?
Oh, I was doing 28.
Two to the left. Point. 4. David. 0.4 as a fraction.
Yeah.
2, 4, 6, 8. Those are fifths. 2 what? 4/10, 2 fifths. Memorize them. Dominic, here's what's not working for you. Getting done really fast. You with me? So open your book. Because to get done that fast and to appear so confident should be equating to 98, 99, 100. So open your book. Open your notebook. Dominic, you do really well. But all I'm saying is, no one gets 98, 99, 100. But to be that done that quickly and confident, should. Dominic, spot check, ready? What'd you get for number 18? Shh, please be quiet.
8%.
For number 18.
Number 18. 0.8%.
You gotta be looking at the wrong one.
Which one's number 18?
334, number 18. (31/10).
I think I did the wrong one on that one.
31/10 translates to what decimal? What is 31/10, Brett? It's 3 and how many tenths?
3 and 1, 2.
Okay, so if that's what it is as a decimal, how do you change it to a percent? Whoop, whoop. 310%. And Noelle, using her math sense, looks at that and says, yeah, it should be 300% because the whole number is a... Okay, here we go again. I just said this. Ready? Let's backtrack a second. Everybody pay attention. I said it should be 300% because the whole number is a... You know what response I got? Tenths.
Well, see, I thought...
How does that even... The whole number is a 3. The whole number is tenths. What?
Listen, I thought you talked about like in the denominator. Like, because that's 10. This is like 30 goes into 3 times.
22.8%.
I think that's right. That's what...
Yes. 25. 128 over 150.
Biodiversity, we had that word in science.
Well, Elise, I could do 128 divided by 150, but why work with large numbers when you can make them smaller, right? Did you try to reduce it yet? Okay, so if I divide them both by 2, I get 64 over 75, and that at least makes them smaller for me. Right, Lauren?
Yeah.
Okay. So 64 divided by 75 is going to get me, Elise, a decimal, right? And once I get that decimal, I can change it to a percent by moving it 2 places to the right. Did I write the fraction correctly?
I only have 8 minutes to get. That's 100.
I wonder your hair smells so good.
Oh, I didn't look at it.
It's okay.
Let's go. You're the one that told you.
I know, I said it now.
Alright, so I'm gonna be okay with rounding it to the nearest 10, alright? So once I get to here, and I see this next number is gonna be a 3,
No, I'm not.
I would be okay with 85.3%. But if I was to keep going, I would notice something else that I could turn into a fraction. Because I'm gonna keep, the 3's gonna start repeating. So if it's 85.333, then it's 85 1/3. But I would take 85.3.
43.3 with the one thing in, but
1/3.
I didn't know that. That was one of the ones I memorized.
There you go.
Okay.
What's that?
What was that? You just like totally about your like.
You're always going out.
You see?
So you're learning.
It's Jaden. It's on top. Fractional bar students lectures include 3 to 5. What?
Yes. Oh,
No.
Thank you.
You haven't seen it.
What number are you on?
David, what are you looking for? 25? Well, Ethan, you want to help your neighbor out with number 25 since he wasn't paying attention?
Yeah, really.
Yes, Elise.
Trying to be when you're changing the I mean,
Zacchaeus, this might benefit you. Go ahead.
when you're changing a percent to a decimal, do you move it to the left or right?
Percent, listen, I'm gonna, everybody listen. When you're changing a percent to a decimal, you move it to the left. Now wait, I don't want you to just know the rule, Elise. I want you to use math sense. You're changing and listen, it's good to always go back to a default one. Are you guys listening? Always go back to a default one that you know. 25%, right? That's usually one that you memorize pretty quick. That 25% is the same as 0.25. So rather than get bogged down in the rules, use math sense and think, okay, I know that this is a quarter, 25 cents, right? So if I'm going from percent to decimal, just remind yourself with one that you easily know. You go, oh yeah, I moved to the left. Does that make sense? Because I get it, it could be confusing. Okay, do you go to the left or the right? So go to a default one that you know and follow that.
Oh my goodness.
You guys are very interested in the sinus drainage of one set.
No.
Another one.
I know.
Right.
Brett, what happened to your, guess what?